And while there are any number of factors behind the drop in migrants, experts point to one thing that has affected almost everything else this year: the COVID-19 pandemic. After Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, the main thing on people's minds is voting and how to honor her legacy in the upcoming election. Viewings will continue until 10 p.m. tonight and tomorrow before Justice Ginsburg is brought to lie in state on Friday. President Donald Trump tweeted Monday that he's eager to get out of here and get back on the campaign trail. Every Senate Democrat but one has blasted Republican plans to rush a replacement for late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. USCIS unveiled the fees this summer, and they were scheduled to start Friday. At least part of the drop is policy-driven. The Trump administration's migrant protection protocols force some immigrants to wait in Mexico for processing. Fiscal 2019 was an outlier, and this year's numbers are on track to return to levels of the previous 4 years, when total apprehensions ranged between 415 and 550,000 migrants. In Washington, Carolina Hassett, Cronkite News. President Donald Trump tweeted Monday that he's eager to get out of here and get back on the campaign trail. But for now, Trump's family members and Vice President Mike Pence will serve as the face of the campaign.
President Trump not being out on the campaign trail is a big deal. Frankly, when you have the vice president campaigning for you, sure, he would be campaigning, but not in place of the president necessarily at big rallies.
Experts say that Pence will not raise the roof at a Trump rally like Trump does.
I think his default is to defend the president's record no matter what and kind of be a loyal soldier.
And while Trump is stuck in the White House recuperating from COVID-19, Democratic challenger Joe Biden will be making his first 2020 campaign trip to Arizona tomorrow with his running mate, California Senator Kamala Harris.
There's a reason why both candidates are there, and it would mean more for former Vice President Biden to pick up that state, and it would be a big blow for the Trump-Pence campaign to lose that on Election Day.
But they also say rallies, with or without Trump, are not likely to sway any voters' minds this late in the campaign.
Honestly, I'm not sure how much those really change anybody's mind at this point. The in-person visits and the rallies and things are really just for his base. His base is already motivated to vote for him.
People that support President Trump, that are staunch Trump supporters, are going to stick behind him. We saw that outside of Walter Reed this past weekend.
Lee thinks Biden may have an edge on the campaign trail, given his history of COVID-19 precautions in Trump's recent diagnosis.
I think Vice President Biden has shown a dedication to following science and handling this in a serious professional way that will resonate not just in Arizona, but across the country.
Neither campaign is about to abandon Arizona, a state in play that would be a coup for Biden if Democrats win and a blow to the GOP if they lost the traditionally red state.
I don't think you can say that President Trump definitely has Arizona in his pocket. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going there at all.
With less than 4 weeks to Election Day, it's not clear whether Trump will get back to Arizona or campaigning at all. But he promised in a tweet Monday that he will be back on the campaign trail soon. At the White House, Carolina Hassett, Cronkite News. Border Patrol officials will release the final 2020 numbers in Tucson, where they are expected to be joined by Donald Trump Jr. And while there are any number of factors behind the drop in migrants, experts point to one thing that has affected almost everything else this year: the COVID-19 pandemic. The number of migrants apprehended at the southern border plummeted in fiscal 2020, a drop experts attribute to fears of COVID-19 and the economic havoc it caused.
In 2020, we have the, COVID-19, we have the recession that resulted from COVID-19, so there's just less of a reason to come here in the first place.
Final numbers will be released Wednesday, but are on track to be less than half of the more than 977,000 people caught trying to cross the border illegally in fiscal 2019.
It being fairly pandemic-induced because of elevated fears and lack of economic opportunity in the places where they would have maybe sought out to go before.
At least part of the drop is policy-driven. The Trump administration's migrant protection protocols force some immigrants to wait in Mexico for processing. And COVID-19 has limited border crossings from Mexico and Canada to essential travel only.
The U.S. has the technical ability to close its borders when it needs to, like a pandemic, when it is not a wise time for people to be moving in long distances.
It is also due to the unusually high number of border crossers last year. The 400,000 apprehended in the first 11 months of this year is much closer to the total stopped from 2015 to 2018. Experts think this latest drop may not last long.
People who were struggling before the pandemic are likely struggling even more now and are going to see that as a reason to migrate.
Others believe that whichever way the numbers go could have a lot to do with who wins on Election Day.
We have an election coming up, and it depends who's going to be in office come January and what the policies of that administration might be.
If the Trump administration wins a second term, then I think these agreements can continue.
But Narasta thinks factors depressing migration are only temporary, and that people will soon want to come to the U.S. again, and they will find a way.
Well, I think that any kind of decline this year is merely temporary. People still want to come to the United States, and there are still very few legal ways to do so.
Fiscal 2019 was an outlier, and this year's numbers are on track to return to levels of the previous 4 years, when total apprehensions ranged between 415 and 550,000 migrants. In Washington, Carolina Hassett, Cronkite News.